Hello. Have a look at this picture. I guess most of you will agree that it looks good to you. Whoa. that it looks more or less good, right? So the people are smiling, the sea is calm, and it's very colorful too. But you have to keep in mind, those people fled from constant terrorist attacks and crucial crimes in their home countries. Nevertheless, many people here in Europe do not welcome them very nicely. If we would have similar condition here in our countries or parts of it, much more of us would be welcoming, I guess. So, you have to keep in mind, those people are strangers to you, just like all the other people here in Germany, here in Europe, or like here in this room, besides your friends. If you see an issue, it's not enough to sit around and wait for someone else to solve it, especially the government. Just because it's global and you think you can't do anything against it. That's not true. For me, this was higher education for refugees for two reasons. The first is, many people always only see the disadvantages of refugees coming to Europe, but there are also benefits for us. Many of them are very young. Over 70% of them are under 30, in contrast to our very old European and especially German societies. So if you could integrate them into our job markets, they can actually help us to pay our social care systems. At the moment, there are no reliable studies about how educated the refugees are. But the German Ministry for Migration and Flight asked them, what are their wishes? And the main wish they mentioned were they want to work, not being safe, not having a nice family. So wouldn't it be awesome if we could provide missing education in order to integrate them into our society and our job market? The second reason is, I always dreamed of being a researcher since my early childhood. I wanted to discover something new. And I think everybody has the right to fulfill his potential and make his dreams come true. So I wanted to give that back to refugees as well, and to all other people in the world, of course. But at the moment, only less than 1% of the refugees worldwide have access to higher education. That's the reason why we started Kiron last year. And here you can see a part of our team from the last team weekend. Our vision is to provide refugees with accredited university degrees free of charge. They start with studying MOOCs, massive open online courses in the first year, which they can do in English and learn local languages meanwhile. They can do that from wherever they are and at their own pace. On the other side, we're also addressing capacity issues at local universities, which are often pretty full in the first years, but have gaps in higher years due to dropout rates. Today, I want to share you some insights I get when I was working on Kiron. I realized that software engineering concepts can actually help you to organize your organization and to do your work. The first concept I want to talk about is open source, which is comparable to a vision. In the beginning, when you have an idea, you will need a vision, and you need to share it with all the other people around you, and in the social media world, and in the newspaper. And if you really believe in your vision, in your idea, then it's easy to convince other people to follow you. Last year, we were only 3 people, and as you could see in the picture before, we are now of more than 200 persons, and that were only a part of it. So, if you share your idea and other people follow you, then you have to recognize that different people will have different interests, but they will all contribute to your main idea. As in Kiron, many people want to help refugees, of course, but they also want to build a nice team. They want to build a nice piece of software, or they want to build a studyable curriculum for our students. But all of these ideas and all of these people with different interests will contribute to your main idea, to your vision, like in open source. And it can really help you to get well known and to somehow explode, like many open source projects like Linux did in the past. Which brings me to the next point. Now, if you have people working with you and you want to figure out how you organize them, then this is very important. It's well known at TechWord as Melvin Conway's law. Any organization that designs a system will produce a design whose structure is a copy of the organization communication structure. So what this means is, when you create an organization and you will design a system, a product, do any kind of work, then this will reflect how you communicate inside your organization. On the other side, this means you can flip this around. If you want to be very flexible, if you want to cut down complexity, then you also need a very flexible and simple way to organize your team. Let us first have a look at how many conventional people structure their teams and do their work. So this is a simplified approach how you can build software of three main parts of software. One part of software is the UI, which is the user interface you as an end user can see and where you interact with. Then there's a middleware, which contains the logic on what is done when you click this button, when you enter this kind of information. And in most applications, you also have a database where all the information you enter or other people enter are stored and managed, which is usually done by database administrators. So as you can see here, we have three teams, and they are grouped by skills, and they all work on one big product. So in computer science, there is a very trending approach called microservices, where you structure your teams in a different way in order to reduce the complexity. Let us have a look. As you can see here, the product is split up into three parts called services. They interact with each other, but they are developed by a team, which consists of all experts needed to build it. Like you can see here, we have all three colors in each circle. So all three kinds of specialists are indirectly in the team. This reduces the communication between teams, and it also reduces the complexity, because every team can focus on one small piece of the code, one small piece of the software and the product. This also reduces centralized management. This comes usually with very high responsibility, so the teams are making decisions on their own, and they are responsible for that. This also comes with some needs. In order to run your organization like that, in order to build your product like that, you need strong documentation. You have to documentate who is doing what. As the teams are not communicating so much with each other, it's important that they can somehow find out who is doing what, to make sure that nothing is done twice, and to make sure that everyone has the right information in his head. Because if people don't talk with each other, it's easy to get lost the overview, and it's also easy to have old information in your head. And sometimes you have to live with that. Let us have a look at how we did this at Kiron. So this is an overview of our services. There's the career service, study hubs, direct academics, a job platform, the language school, a psychosocial support, mentoring, and the buddy program. All these services have one main aim, like the language school is there to provide them with the German language or the French language or any other European language. And it contributes to our whole main aim, the overall aim of higher education for refugees. And the others, like the buddy program, they get a buddy and thus get integrated into our society. They should meet with persons from their local countries, from their host countries. But it all helps them to stay on track, because doing your studies online can be difficult. And they usually have high dropout rates. So getting a buddy, a person who cares about what you are doing, helps to stay you on track. As you can see here, we usually create a new service when we face a challenge. So we see there are high dropout rates. What can we do against it? We do the buddy program. And also, these programs can develop independently at their own pace again. So if we have a high need for one of these services, we can put more resources on that, or they can find more persons to do this. They also can fund themselves in order to work. And it's also very modularized. So these people are working on disjunct products which have no overlap at its best. Until now, it was very natural. We have different services, and we just call them services, and super easy to make different kinds of them. But you also can use this technique if you have one composed service, one end product, like higher education for refugees. This is our main product. So this consists of a curriculum which tells the students what to do when, what they have to do in order to achieve a degree in the end. And in order to let them transfer to a partner university, we also need academic partnerships. So we have teams working directly on that. But for the students, this gets visible to our student platform. So we compose all this together, which is called service composition, into one end product, one visible result for the user. Again, if we are working on this student platform, experts from the teams come together and work on this product. So there's no dedicated tech department at all. People from the tech department go directly into the teams, and each team should have one person from the tech department is directly responsible for doing that, making own decisions and implementing own features. Now I want to go over to what other advantages this have. If you usually have a very big application, like here, where everything is in one, every feature is in one big application, like the different forms with the different colors. If you want to scale up, so by providing more capacities to your users, then you have to do the same application again and again on more computers, as you can see in these brown boxes here. If you would have structured your service in a very independent way, you can use single services of it and to adjust the capacity regarding to the demand. Think of the orange box like the messaging of Facebook and the whole application as Facebook itself. If people only want to use the messenger, then you can just increase the orange forms in the right example, but you have to do more and more whole applications in the left example. And also, it's much easier to test it, right? So if you want to test the whole big application, this is much more difficult. If you want to test if Facebook at its own is working, that's much harder. If you just want to test if a message is sent correctly and received correctly. Same is true for the reality again. If you have your team, if you have your service, like us, with different services, you can go to different countries, build up their teams, and then the teams again work on their own. And also you can make small adjustments to only parts of the services and test again how this affects your end product without changing the rest of your teams, without changing the rest of your idea. The next point is evolutionary design, also a very common concept. So when we started, then there weren't enough research about how online education is, if it's even possible. So we started very early to develop and go directly into the market with our student platform, though we weren't totally done with our product, right? So the idea is to develop something, test it with a small group, and then directly release it. We follow somehow this 80-20 rule, which means that 80% can be done very easily, and the last 20% are hard to achieve. So if you figured out the first 80%, then you can already release your software and then constantly improving it. You have products, no project. That doesn't mean you are done with something after a year. You do it constantly, making it better to get the best results. This also means when you directly going to the market and deploy your software, when you bring your product to the customers, then you can easily adapt to changes and the risk of failure is reduced. If you're working 2 years without ever testing or trying it out in the real world and then fail, you wasted 3 years of your life. If you're doing this after half a year and people say, that's not so good, you can easily adapt your product, your idea to the needs of the customers, of the people you want to help. This is also very important for your organizational structure and other parts of it. So you start with something and then you improve it all the time. Even if you might not notice that you could split up something in the beginning, you can split up it later. As you can see, when you had at the beginning we had one student service department, then we created several student services for students, like the buddy program or the psychosocial support, which are now split up. Let me sum that up. So, if you have a product, an idea about a product and empowerment or service, if you want to help people globally, then you can use this microservices approach to structure your team in order to reduce the complexity and give persons responsibility to engage them even more. Use this technique to transfer to other challenges, not even the refugee crisis, I don't know, the climate change or other things. And maybe you will solve another global challenge. Thank you.